How this relationship will be established considering the investment that has been done by national government. That is the most important thing we are going to have with that MOU. And as I said, Mr. Speaker, that's why it is nice progressively that this study are owned by private entities so that they do not have consideration of this type of issues. Mr. Speaker, on the question of Honorable Mayaka asked something about the team that was stuck and protested in our offices and the airport. The Speaker, we realized that the team wanted to travel 6 days before the tournament. And there is nothing, Mr. Speaker, to go and prepare for Kabaddi when you are competing. So we had requested them that they travel at least 2 days before to have time to recover and then to play, and so that we can save the costs. We communicated that to their federations, and they were well aware. But you know, sometimes when people want just to raise their voice a little bit, they do certain things that may not be desirable. And the federation said that they did not instruct their players to do what they did. And we thought that was an act of indiscipline. But nevertheless, we continue supporting them, and they are now out of the country participating in the tournament. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Zamzam has talked about the FKF elections. When we got to office, one of the things I promised during vetting here in this house is that I was going to do everything possible to make sure that they do elections in the first place. So I'm happy we have an elections day. Now, we have the elections board, which is part of the regulations of FKF law. Mr. Speaker, I am going to have a meeting with the board to see if we can lend them neutral facilities, government facilities to operate their elections from, and whether we can also find ways of supporting them technically with IEBC so that the elections is as transparent as possible. That's the conversation we are having. And the stakeholders are busy now, the candidates are busy campaigning. Our desire is to deliver credible elections. We know that it is not government per se that is in charge of the elections, but our oversight responsibility and the Office of the Registrar is working very hard to make sure that that independence is achieved. We really want a properly working in FKF that has the credibility and the confidence of the stakeholders so that football can reach the stature that the people of Kenya want it to reach. And so that I promise that I will make sure that we deal with that. On the grassroots football support, again, apart from the Kenya Academy of Sports not having resources to deal with these academies in different places, the rest, you know, sports is private. Let's put it there first. Sports is a private venture. It's like business. If we look at it from a business perspective, until the day you are coming to compete on behalf of your country, the rest is a private business, and we must see it as business. And we want to support it the way we support other businesses, MSMEs and all that, you know, as a country. That's why we must have multiple ways of achieving it. The best entities, grassroots entities for developing sports is schools. That is why we want to sit down with the Ministry of Sports to make sure that the schools provide opportunity for nurturing talent. The rest of club football should outrightly be private. They should raise resources. They should run their footballs very well, have funding and take advertisements and all other mechanisms. But when it comes to nurturing, if we focus on schools alone, no part of Kenya will be left out. But if we focus on building a place where that training will only happen, few places can be constructed in the country. Schools all over the world, and I say this recently when we were having a NOC review of the Paris. In the US, I was told, and a statistic which I still have, the US universities contributed 3,000 athletes who went to compete in Olympics. Universities. While our universities in Kenya do not contribute even one. We have a problem of transiting from primary, it's okay. Secondary, even when we fund it from using sports fund, they produce the best sports people. After high school, we have very few athletes that are competing that are in universities. In fact, the only sport that has managed to have that caliber of athletes is rugby. The rest, you know, the rest of the sports, football, athletics, and so forth, we do not have proper programs that take place in our colleges and universities. Again, I promised, and we are going to do this, that in the sports policy, we must strengthen education. In fact, in other countries, the Ministry of Sports, the Department of Sports, is called the Ministry of Education and Sports, because education and sports going together makes it possible for us to develop this talent. Key among them is working with the schools for equality and equity. The other issue is raised by Honorable Raso is on the question of being strategic. That is why you see in the bigger stadia, we are just constructing one per region. The ones for 10,000, 15,000, we are focusing on regions. And you are right, you know, in the entire Northeastern region, there is no one stadium. Out of, for example, affirmative action, we need to have one that will be used in that region, and the talent is there. And then, you know, make sure that every region is taken care of. Before now, we can move to counties. The rest is to leave county governments and private sector to construct the rest of the stadium. And slowly, government should maybe keep 2 or 3 national government. The rest either run by counties or private sector and clubs. If we had thriving clubs like Gor Mahia, AFC, Ulinzi, Shabana, or so forth, they would buy these clubs from government, pay back to the government, and they own it, and then it would be used for sports. That's why it's important to develop the sport itself, because that sport can be able then to facilitate the infrastructure that we need. Mr. Speaker, on the Marsabit one, there was inordinate delay. I already captured that in my report. Marsabit, Kinoru, Kamarin, among others. But as I promised, this will be, by the time I come back here to speak about sports again and sports infrastructure, I think the pending infrastructure will have either been commissioned to start for the ones which have not started like Kamarin, or we should be completing and handing over Marsabit. As we speak now, our officers are on their way to Marsabit to assess how much it will cost to complete the Marsabit one. And again, technical advice from Sports Kenya to make sure that can the grass grow in that area, or we use AstroTurf, or what are we going to do in terms of those pitches? Mr. Speaker, I totally agree with the honorable member that we should not spread ourselves thin when it comes to the infrastructure. Thank you.
Good. KJ.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I also want to thank Waziri Onesmus Kipchumba Murkomen for appearing here and also fielding these questions. Mr. Speaker, my questions are very direct. One, what plans does the ministry have for the people of Ngando Ward? Ngando Ward is a ward in Nairobi County which has got not a single public amenity. The only public amenity we have there is a school called Lenana School. Now, the people of Ngando Ward have traditionally been crossing the road, Ngong Road, and going to play in what we used to call poster grounds. It is on these poster grounds that the new stadium is being built. Now, two tragedies are occasioned on our people. One, the workforce that is working there is imported from elsewhere. So the people of Ngando Ward are just watching as these projects are going on. What plans does the ministry have to include our people so that they can also serve their community in the constructions of this stadium? And two, all the up-bet schools, because now is when Ngando is getting its first public primary school, all the up-bet schools in this ward use the poster grounds as their playing field. So we do not have any fields in all of Ngando Ward, and now they're building a stadium there. The question is, what plans does the ministry have for these tens of thousands of children who have traditionally been playing in that field? Mr. Speaker, the second question is a quick one, is to ask, is the ministry aware that there are office bearers of FKF who are insisting that they shall go into the election beyond their constitutional timelines, beyond their constitutional tenures, arguing that their tenures were interrupted by the COVID pandemic? Mr. Speaker, you know, even yourself, you are a senator, and your tenure must have been interrupted. So was mine. So was the tenure of His Excellency the President Emeritus Uhuru Kenyatta. But he did not insist that he shall go beyond his constitutional tenure just because it has been interrupted by COVID. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to know what the ministry is doing about this, because we would not want this ministry to fall captive of the federations like previous ministries have done. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Millie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, CS. Mr. Speaker, I heard the CS speaking very well about the nurturing of talents. And as a member of parliament for Suba North and as a child rights advocate, I want to raise the case of Claire Mary Paul, who was identified and spent 4 months, and she's a Form 4 student. And then after she was identified, she was dropped. When they were about to go, and new people picked. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying as a child rights advocate, because you may have actually destroyed somebody's life permanently, while you are saying that you are actually trying to nurture sports. Is it not then self-defeating? If you are wondering why we only have rugby that is doing well, if we can actually identify young people and destroy their futures by creating hope and dashing those hopes. And is one of the things that was said is they will be included, the girls who are left out. Is she still being included, even though as a spectator? And what do you have for her future? And finally, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to know if you're still building a facility in Suba North for a sports academy.
Yes, member for Tetu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, is to congratulate the minister for assuming his new role of in the sports ministry. Mr. Speaker, I applaud the minister for his intention to complete all our incomplete stadiums. But if I got it right, he mentioned that Roringo Stadium, the only stadium of meaningful stature in Nyeri, is at 75% complete, if I had the number right. And I don't know whether the minister has been misled or he chose to mislead the House, because it is actually very close to a forest. This stadium started in 2017, and to the best of my estimate, and I've consulted some of my colleagues on phone from Nyeri, it is nothing more than 25% complete. I would like the minister to maybe lead the relevant committee of the House to go to Roringo and ascertain whether the statement he has made in this House is correct. If not, he would rather withdraw and say he doesn't have the facts, because indeed Roringo is not in the state that he has mentioned. 260 million has been sunk. The tartan that was put there 7 years ago is completely worn out. The artificial turf is completely worn out. The VIP, dyers and the rest is nothing more than 20% complete. So, Waziri, I think you have misled this House. Maybe you need to correct yourself. Thank you.
Honorable Basil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, the CS, for a very comprehensive response to so many questions. As a member of this Committee of Sports, I would like to know what measures do you have to manage doping and end cheating? Number two, issues of corruption have dominated the ministry. So what are you going to do to manage corruption and to ensure we have progression in the ministry?
How do you manage corruption?
To eradicate.
Eradicate or manage?
No, you don't manage, you eradicate corruption.
Because you ask him how he will manage corruption.
No.
Minister, do you have talents to manage corruption?
Yeah, because that question is tied with the Stoli projects. We have so many Stoli projects, and the main issue is corruption. Thank you.
Yes, Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, Waziri. Honorable Speaker, Waziri is also the most valuable player on the football field for Bunge FC as the striker. Congratulations. Number one question, Waziri, you have mentioned the several studies that you are developing around the country and even the city. But one point stands out glaringly. that you are forgetting the mother stadiums of this country, and you've said nothing about them. I will give you two. And you ably said that Wembley has a historical background, just like City Stadium. I don't know where you put City Stadium, where we grew up from and what developed the talents from Eastlands and all those players who are the greatest. And then you have forgotten Buhungu, which you indicate is being built. But when I pass by Buhungu, there's nothing going on. And those who are the original developers of talent under Chris Makoha. I was a beneficiary of Chris Makoha himself while at Kakamega. So therefore, where's the place of those old stadiums? Number two, what plans are underway for you to build the stadium you promised us in Vihiga? Vihiga County has got no stadium completely. And then there was the suggestion for Kidundu and Mumboha. And you have mentioned nothing about it. Lastly, Waziri, so many Kenyans were winning gold during the election, during the Olympics. But those Kenyans, you see, this name is Keter or Kipngetich, and then all of a sudden you realize this person is a Canadian. What is happening that the best athletes are running for other countries and not Kenya? Thank you.
Member for Kamukunji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity, and I'll wanted just to tell the Minister Murkomen that a very...
Why aren't you upstanding?
I have, you know, I have disabilities and I have a broken, broken leg. So,
Okay.
is it all right?
Go ahead, but I've previously seen you stand up to talk. That's why I'm asking. But go ahead. I know your disability.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to, first of all, tell the Minister that a very important and a large local soccer tournament, the Kamkunji Peace Tournament 2024, is taking place in my constituency at the moment, bringing in 48 teams from across the 5 wards. But the conditions in which they play, the field in which they play, the fields in which they play are in a very bad condition. And my new Kamkunji is one of the districts or constituencies that produce some of the best football talent that we have in this country historically. I just wanted to see whether there is any contribution that your ministry could make for the large number of urban youth in our capital city, a capital city of 5 million people. What can your ministry do, and what plans does your ministry have in terms of enhancing, nurturing, promoting, and building this great talent within our youth and within our communities? The second element is also whether you could come out, perhaps as you do with other sports. For example, I've seen you're a very enthusiastic marathon person. Maybe one of these days you should also come and see some of our youth playing out in the field so that they can see that there's a commitment to promote and encourage young people in sports.
Thank you. Lel Mengit, let's take those 7, then you answer. We'll do another round, members, so hold your horses.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. First, I would like to thank the CS for answering and elaborating some of the issues raised. I know he has mentioned the issue of incomplete stadiums, but I wanted to ask him on the issue of, there was an advert for development of Kapsabet Stadium, construction of Kapsabet Stadium. The advert that ran out on 26th October last year. It was advertised, it was tendered, and we were still waiting for the tender processes, evaluation, and whatever. But up to date, I don't know what stopped in between. And I know the project was for financial year 2023-2024. So I presume that the funds were available then. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, Recently, we have had several suicidal cases amongst the young athletes, particularly in Nandi County. Late last year and early this year, we've lost a number of them through suicide. Is there a plan for the government or the CS to set up psychosocial support desks, probably in every county, so that we can always, these people can get some advices whenever they have problems, guidance, and such kind of issues? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, you can answer those 7. Then we will pick another round.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me start with, I think it was Honorable KJ. Yes. Mr. Speaker, true, the Talanda Stadium facility now is developed to an international stadium standard. It's being developed to the international stadium, and it was a playing ground for for your constituents. But it was not an official playing ground. Let me start from there. It was still land allocated to an institution. It could still have been built anything else. The only good news that you have is that your ward will be the host of the best stadium probably in the continent. It's a neighboring ward. Okay, yeah. Then you are even invading another ward. That's even worse. But at least you'll be neighboring a very important facility that will bring business to your neighborhood. Number 2 is that outside the main stadium, there are 3 training pitches. There will be 3, 2 with running tracks, and the other one is purely football pitch. Again, in terms of business and employment, it will benefit the people who are living in the neighborhood. We believe also the facilities will be improved infrastructure, which will touch your ward up to Lenana and all the way to the Kibra ward. Yes, and the plan therefore is to, that's why I was coming. Maybe the plan is to say, with Sports Kenya, how can these training pitches be accessed by children and even players who have who are at the bottom of the pyramid? They do not have the capacity to pay a higher fee, and that should be, we should work out that plan as we develop this facility. I am not aware, insofar as the question of employees not coming from your ward. I suspect there may be some, because there are 2,000. 2,000 is a huge figure. And at the optimum, they will be having 3,000 people working at and they work day and night. I don't suspect that possibly with the minimum skills to work there that people will miss from your ward. But we will make sure that in the remaining 1,000, maybe to tell the contractor to make sure that it takes care of the people around. And that is the case for every project of government, including the housing project. And I hope that can be followed through. The other promise I can make is that perhaps we can speak to the contractor. Coming from your presentation here, I am thinking that we can speak to the contractor to help you put a sports academy within the neighborhood of Lenana Primary School, the new school you've built, so that it can also help as part of their CSR to extend a facility to that very important school. And I will undertake that endeavor, not because you are my friend, but it's the right thing to do. It's because the right thing to do. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable KJ also raised the question of FKF elections and the eligibility of those who have held office for more than 2 terms. A letter went out from the registrar expressly to FKF that only no one will run for the same office more than 2 terms under the Sports Act. And that is very clear. And I believe that the officials of FKF who are holding office now, if they want to run for office, maybe to run for a different office other than the one they have served for more than 2 terms, so that we can keep within our legal standards, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Emilio Diambo.
Mr. Can you give an assurance to the country that you are actually going to sort out our football?
Mr. Speaker,
we were a better footballing nation 20 years ago than we are today because of sheer mismanagement of football in the country.
I have made it clear.
And when we were vetting you, you gave us that assurance. Can
Yes.
you assure this House and the country
Mr.
that
Speaker,
you are going to sort out the mess in football and take back Kenya to its level as a footballing nation?
Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Sports operates, especially for sports, through the federations. So sorting football is sorting the federation. And the election process that we are undertaking, Mr. Speaker, we want to be as transparent as possible to make sure that those who come in will make sure that they follow the narrow path, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that our football is managed well. Beside that, we will, of course, play our part as government to support nurturing of talent in the football sector and to make sure that the Harambee Stars team is also facilitated enough to prepare well for tournaments. But what is extremely important is to make sure that the management of sports, including football, Mr. Speaker, is going to be as professional as possible to open doors for as many young people to play a role as, in this sector. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Millie Odhiambo has raised a very important question touching on Claire Maris, our daughter who comes from her county. And Mr. Speaker, I want to allay the fears that people have that there was unfair selection of sports team. Far from it, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, in the sports sector, you can be doing very well today. And when final selection for a tournament is done, you may not meet the cut. Three of our girls participated and helped the team to qualify. But by the time, that was a year ago, by the time the selection was being done and there were 35 in camp and about 14 were dropped, Mr. Speaker, Claire Maris became a victim of that process. And not a victim because the coach is biased. She was just selecting her team, the best team that can compete. And as a result, we made a decision with the support of His Excellency the President to support the 3 girls who participated in the qualification process to travel to Dominican Republic as fans to just have that inspiration and even to facilitate them to come and do the exams with their colleagues who got the chance to play. Football is cruel. Anyone who has been following football, it can be very cruel to finally not be in the list of the selected 23. You have been hoping, you are playing very well, then your team now is going, and fans of different teams are saying, this player is qualified, this one is qualified. There's only one person who determines the team, the manager, the team manager or the coach. And once she selects that this is the best team for us to compete, we support them because that is their professional responsibility. And the minister cannot interfere, neither can even FKF interfere because this should be the preserve of the coach. But in terms of developing our players, maybe in future when they talk to them, they should talk to them nicely to tell them you didn't make to the team, try the next time and so forth. But when they travel and they're encouraged, they also get inspired to make sure that they are in the next World Cup. Mr. Speaker, Sports Academy in Suba North, of course, if to answer the question of Honorable Millie, eventually Suba North will have an academy because the intention is to have 290 academies. Most of these academies will be situated in schools for maintenance and for accessibility. So eventually that will happen. It may not be in the first 30, but as I read earlier, it could be in the next 90 or the 90 that follows or the 80 that will be the last one in the strategic plan of the ministry. But we hope that that can be done fairly so that it's spread across counties. Not one county will benefit at the expense of others. Honorable Basil has asked about doping. Doping is a serious issue. I think, Mr. Speaker, I will be paying lip services. I give just an answer because it will not be comprehensive. But the program we have for anti-doping program is so comprehensive. There is one agreement we made with the World International Athletics Federation when Lord Sebastian Coe came around, and we agreed that we called Enhanced Program, which is a 3-year program. Is it 3 years? Yes, 3-year program to make sure that we do better testing and better facilities. But comprehensively, we need the budget. and you heard me speak earlier here, that on a request of 300 million budget for per year, MEAGA 300 million, we only got 20. And that sector requires our proper support. But we are determined to make sure that ADAC works very hard to eradicate doping in our country, because it is going to be the black sport, actually a threat to commercialization of our sports. And Mr. Speaker, to deal with this doping issue, we have now made it mandatory to register all sports people so that we know where they are, we track them, and training facilities. We know, Mr. Speaker, even an investigation that is ongoing of some foreigners who come to our country in the name of they are coming to train and they are perpetuating matters of doping, especially one that has happened in one of the counties that is known for athletics. I don't want to say this further because DCI is currently dealing with those foreigners. And so we are going to go to the bottom of this matter insofar as doping is concerned. Insofar as corruption is concerned, I will do everything possible within my vicinity to deal with corruption. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, this is a disease that is permeating all sectors of the country. But in terms of sports is concerned, we'll make sure that the processes are as transparent as possible to make sure that we do not, either in selection of players, in financing of the teams, in the delivery of our projects, we'll make sure that corruption is eradicated from those areas. But Mr. Speaker, this is a collective responsibility of all of us and our society. We must be able to deal with this menace head on. On the issue of Honorable Wandeto, I actually saw you when I was reading the statement. You quickly went to consulting another honorable member. You didn't listen to the entire part of the statement. So maybe unless I repeat it again, because once you had 75%, I could see you were worked up, which is a good thing, because it means that stadium is very important to you and to your county. The truth is that the original stadium was only supposed to be 2,000 capacity. And it was not supposed to have a covering roof. And the pavilion was supposed to be, but what you saw is 75% of what's supposed to be delivered. But as I read in the statement, we are going to deliver the same project, but now 10,000 capacity with a proper running track. And as I told you also in the statement, we have canceled the original contract. We'll re-advertise afresh. Nyeri is one of the most important areas for training in athletics. In the larger Mount Kenya region, Nyeri and Nanyuki play extremely important role in training of our athletes. And eventually we will have to think also of what to do in Nanyuki, Nanyuki and general Laikipia area in terms of establishing a proper high-altitude training facilities for our sportsmen. So we will deliver that, Mr. Speaker, and I promise you that before end of the year, we should advertise afresh and do a new contract for that area. Mr. Speaker, on Honorable Ambogo Mulema, yes, true, the Bukungu Stadium contractor is practically by classical legal definition on site, but physically with your eyes, he is not. You know, in technical contractual times, he is in charge of the site. Let's put it that way. But he may not be progressing as we should because of agreeing on a few issues, including financial issues. We'll make sure that we support Bukungu Stadium to complete the part that was handed over or taken over by national government, because part of it had already been done by county government. So there are legal consultations and issues that we need to sort between us and the county. The Vihiga County, let me say this. The stadia that I read are not the all stadia in the country. Some completed a long time ago, like Embu and some are done by county government. So if you don't see me reading Vihiga or wherever, there are some programs that are being done by the counties in that region. And others are flagship projects. That's why in your neighborhood, Bukungu Stadium is being taken care of. And to deal with the Vihiga, as part of the Sports Academy, Joe Kadenge Sports Academy is going to be constructed. It's part of the 30 sports academies that are going to be constructed that have actually been advertised already. Yes, and then on Honorable, yes, you asked another question. Why do we have athletes called Kipketer and Yavi and others running for other countries. Why are they? Why are we losing our best athletes to go and run for other countries? Mr. Speaker, the choice of a Kenyan taking over citizenship and running for another country is not peculiar to Kenya. You know, Mr. Speaker, that the reason world shot put champion or record holder is actually a Nigerian who is a German. We know that all over the world people are running for different countries. Those athletes are not running for those countries because we were unable to give them an opportunity to run. It's, Mr. Speaker, also out of choice. You know, Wilson Kipketer left this country long time ago, 1990s, early 90s, to go and run for Denmark, as of choice. You know, Bernard Kiplagat was doing so well in 1500 and 5,000, and as of choice, he went to run for United States of America.
Cherono.
Stephen Cherono went to run for Qatar. Mr. Speaker.
But Minister,
the
revelation by Yavi on
Yes.
why she ended up running for another sovereign is something you must address.
Mr.
Those
Speaker,
who go voluntarily to take citizenship of another country, we have no issues.
Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, Yavi, in her own words, say that the competition in Kenya was too hard for her. She could not make the cut in the country. That is why she chose to run for another country. And that is the case. No, I know you saw the propaganda that was on social media. That's propaganda, Mr. Speaker. I'm giving you, because when I saw those propaganda that was on social media, I asked the question directly to AK. And I also saw her interview. And she said that while she was at 17 or there, she could not even make to the top 3. And that is the case for Kenya. The real competition in some races in Kenya is final. If you want to run for Kenya, you may not even have a chance to qualify to go there. And having gone to another country, she has done exceptionally well. What I wanted to say in conclusion on this statement is that we should be very proud to export other sports people to run for other countries. Because one, they bring foreign exchange to our country. They don't leave the country. They are always here. Mr. Speaker, everything they earn, they invest here. And Mr. Speaker, we should be proud. The question of fairness and corruption in selection of teams will be handled differently, but the question of a choice of an athlete running for another country, and they are Kenyans, they must not be ostracized for doing so. They must be supported for making that choice. The only challenge, the thing we must do as a country, is having exported them to run for other countries, we also work very hard to make sure we beat them in these international competitions. But where they beat us, I would rather Yavi beats a Kenyan than an Ethiopian beating a Kenyan, because we still get the benefits with her beating us than somebody else beating the country. So just like we are exporting labor, we are exporting professors are all over the world, doctors are serving, teachers other parts of the world, athletes also are looking for greener pastures to develop themselves. And those countries have better facilities and better rewards than ourselves. And we must encourage them as we work towards the same as a country. Mr. Speaker, City Stadium is a county facility, and I'm sure that the County of Nairobi is going to take care of City Stadium. Mr. Speaker, on the peace tournament, Honorable Yusuf, I am willing, upon agreement with ourselves, for us to have one-on-one consultations on what we can do together. We have limited resources for us to give to everybody who's doing a tournament. In fact, we have agreed as a ministry that let us just focus on supporting the growth of this talent. But where an individual has come out to say, I want to start a tournament, I want to do this, we also allow them to do so using private sector, so that the little amount we get from sports fund deal with the key events that are national in nature that have been organized. But in terms of coming to watch your team, I'm happy to come. And also you should challenge the Bunge FC to come and play a curtain racer. I can be one of the players that can join the Bunge FC to come and curtain race your tournament, maybe at the finals or so. We can agree together. And congratulations for the same as well. Honorable Elmengit, I think I touched on Kapsabet comprehensively, and I told you that it's one of our training facilities for the Kipchoge Stadium that is being constructed in Eldoret, and that is going to be, the process of awarding is ongoing. I think it was post when a decision was made that one of the fields for Africa Cup of Nations was going to be Kipchoge Stadium in Eldoret, and therefore married together as one of the training fields that comes from Kipchoge Stadium. And then for psychosocial support, again, both gender-based violence, psychosocial support for our athletes is something that we must confront. I have established an office in our ministry for gender-based violence issues, and then we have asked all the federations to make sure that they put in place officers that are going to deal with gender-based violence and psychosocial support. I again request all of us, because this is a society problem. Suicide is not a problem now for only athletes, but also all other professionals in the society. Let's work together to make sure that we deal with this issue. I actually, Mr. Speaker, want to use this time to say, I want to thank your deputy, the deputy speaker, Honorable Sholei. She's very, very passionate about athletics and in this area. And she came to my office and offered me very great support on what we need to do on anti-doping and also social support and confronting gender-based violence. There are some things we are working with her, and we want to welcome all other partners that can work together to deal with this menace. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, can we do one last round? Let me see those who are interested in asking questions. Yeah, we can take all of you, provided you ask only one question. If you do more than one, I'll truncate the mic. Maungu?
Thank you, Speaker. Though I'll seek your indulgence, I'd planned to ask two questions, Mr. Speaker.
Just ask one.
Maybe I wish to ask a question on sports funds. Last year, one of our great teams in Vihiga County and Luanda Constituency, specifically known as Luanda Villa, did participate in the Division 1 League and emerged topmost. Your immediate former colleague pronounced himself that Luanda Villa was to benefit from a kitty of 500,000 from the sports kitty, for the sports fund, which was to be given to all winners. Waziri, this money has not been able to reach the club, and these are young people who really felt motivated that by winning the trophy, becoming number one, that money will go a long way in supporting their daily activities. So I wish to hear from you, when will Luanda Villa, which is our pride, get their money, the reward they were promised? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the interest of time, could the Minister inform the House and Kenyans the plans that the Ministry has for Ngaka Talent Center in Makindu Ward of Kibwezi West constituency? Ngaka Talent Center is the center that produced Winfred Nzavi, Winfred Yavi, and many other athletes, and it is in very deplorable conditions. So could the Minister tell us what plans the Ministry has for Ngaka Talent Center?
Guzia. Thank you, Speaker. I'm privileged I sit in that sports committee, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, CS. My question is, how much is the new stadium costing taxpayers, and who is doing it? Then the issue of pending salary payments of WRC assistant directors. They have never been paid. They have never signed a contract. When are you planning to pay them, and when are they going to sign the contracts? Thank you.
Thank you, CNN. Lenguris.
Give Lenguris the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, the Waziri, for the elaborate explanation of the work that you do at the ministry, and we really appreciate. Mine is not a question, but a request. That, Samburu is far from here, and every time we hear about the programs in the national government, I've never heard of anyone mentioning that Samburu is being in consideration. And I know that Waziri has been there, and Samburu has one of the poorest. I cannot call it a stadium, but it's a field. Last December, I held a tournament, and I had to put the sand. Every morning, I had to spread the sand so that the players can use the field. So we have a terrible field in Samburu, and we are far from any other region that you have considered building a stadium. So kindly, I put this request to you that when planning, please consider Samburu. Thank you.
Oyula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I was happy when the minister said that one of his targets is to develop talents from the lower level, primary schools, secondary schools, and so forth. Mr. Speaker, with the little money we used to have at the CDF for sports, we were able to organize football teams in the constituency, specifically to help those who have already left school and have nothing to do, so that we keep them busy with the sports throughout the day. Now, without that fund, Mr. Speaker, we have nothing to help these youths in the constituencies. Could the minister consider putting aside something for the constituencies for sports so that we help these youths to improve on their sports talents?
By something, you mean money?
Yes. Mr. Speaker, we will talk about county governments, that responsibility falling under county government. But I want to assure the minister that county government like Busia has more problems than considering funding anything to do with the sports. So our youths are just going to stay there, and the rest, the last thing we will see is thuggery in the villages. So can the minister consider supporting constituencies when it comes to sports? Thank you.
Asante. Waziri, mwanzo ningependa kupongeza pia nishukuru wakati ulipokuwa kwa barabara, ulitujua sisi la Mashariki hatuna inchi hata moja barabara na ukafanya mpangilio mizuri. Asante. Na sahihi pia ningependa ufikirie la Mashariki kwa upande wa sports. Upande wa sports na hakika kwa miaka kadhaa au kutoka uhuru upatikane hakuna kitu imefanywa la Mashariki. Na ukiangalia kama mipango yote unayozungumza, uwanja la county yote nzima hakuna wa national government, hakuna wa county government. Sasa katika mipangilio yote sisi tunaachwa nyuma, na kuomba kwa hisani yako kama unaweza kusema hata kitu kimoja hapa kimefanywa la Mashariki kwa hii ministry, uniambie tu kimoja, na kama hakuna kuanza sasa utuweke akilini na sisi chochote kinachofanywa huku na sisi mtufanyia. Asante. Umezungumza mambo ya klabu pia ziko, labda unaweza ziwezesha, na kama huzijui ziko klabu ndogo ndogo kule pengine zinaweza wezeshwa. Kuna King Loyal, Biladi, Faza United na zinginezo nyingi. Asante.
Izara kuja? Namwar. Yes, Namwar.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want also to thank the CS Sports. Honorable Speaker, my take is to actually acknowledge the importance of sports and to thank the Minister, CS Murkomen, for taking it seriously. And for me, I give the background of OKM tournament that is solely resource mobilized by the CS and also forming an integral part on peace. My take, Honorable Speaker, is how can he be able to allocate funds and call it sports for peace, especially in those far-plucked areas like Turkana, West Pokot, Samburu, and the rest. I will really appreciate he has been in Turkana, especially in Lodwa, where I come from. and represent. And I would wish if we can also do a stadium in that place, so that we can nurture sports and also promote peace. Thank you.
Parashina.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I also need to congratulate the Waziri. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I also need to request that, if possible, we have a kamkunchi with the Waziri. And this is coming out that sports really touches the youth. And many members of parliament, I wonder, when things which have been talked or been addressed, which is very critical to our constituents, are not in the House. I know many people are busy on the issue of impeachment, but let me... My question is about sports.
Stop being irrelevant.
Okay, let me just ask Mr. Speaker, no problem. Yeah, my question is about if at all we can do the coverage in other areas. For example, Kajiado has not been mentioned, and we have the best runners also. We have best people in javelin. So we need to ask that in this sports academy, if they can be done and the proposal come in for finance purposes, me personally, I'm ready to support them to get more funding for purpose of having it equally distributed among other constituencies, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. It was just an observation today. Thank you.
Mukunji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And I don't want any preambles to your questions. Yes. Just ask questions.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also want to applaud the Waziri for availing himself and congratulate him for fitting in the office, the new office of the CS for Sports. Honorable Speaker, I would like Waziri to tell me and explain to my people in Embu when is Njokere Stadium starting, because it's one of those promises that we were told by His Excellency the President when he came in there. Honorable Speaker, we have a team called 3KFC that is doing very well nationally. And Honorable Speaker, we need, as Waziri is supporting the sport from bottom there, let the money for sports go directly to those teams that are from Mashinani.
Thank you. Bokoyo, one at a time, you've asked your question. We are running out of time, Mukunji. Okay, give him.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just wanted also a clarification for actually public knowledge, Honorable Speaker. When Waziri came into the office of the CS Sports, there was a picture trending of a very quick change into the furnitures of the office. I wanted to know, Honorable Speaker, because I know Waziri is a very prudent person. Is it public funds or there was just a change of furnitures as one CS was leaving and the other one coming in, Honorable Speaker? Thank you very much.
Ngokoyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask my namesake, the CS Onesimus, like myself. Ngong hosts among the highest number of athletes. When you are starting the Deputy Speaker is distracting me, Mr. Speaker. When you are starting the
Deputy Speaker?
Yes, Sholei, she's pointing at me, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Boss. She has many fights nowadays. Mr. Speaker, the stadium that you are doing at Ngong Road, Waziri, about 300 registered athletes, and even more operate from Ngong. Ngong has one of the best attitudes for athletes who do long distance marathons. Helen Obiri, in her interview with international media, mentioned that her greatest disappointment was that she used to train at Ngong, but she used to come for her track training at Nyayo Stadium. When you were starting off, your predecessors, when they were starting off the Ngong, what now we are calling the Talanta, The agreement was they would do something for Ngong athletes because it is one of the hubs that has so many people. You're saying you're doing 2 tracks in your statement. For track, you said you're doing 2. Why didn't you consider doing 1 in Ngong? Because you know very well that there is nowhere else around the metropolitan area that has even the number of training centers that we have. Actually, most of the international ones are at Ngong. Leave alone that, government agencies, the KDF, Kenya Police, have even stationed their camps for these athletes who do the same at Ngong. It has also left Ngong Stadium, where now they should have operated from, nothing happening. While all the materials, the ballast, the sand, comes from Ngong.
Ask your question, Gogoyo.
So I want to ask you, Waziri, why didn't you consider doing the track at Ngong?
Owen Bayer.
Thank you very much, Waziri, for coming in to answer the questions, but also just a quick one. When are you considering building a stadium in the North Coast? You know, the North Coast does not have, we have great talent. Great footballers of Harambee Stars came from Kilifi, Abbas Magongo. You want me to give you the list? But we do not have, we only have Kwale, the new one, Mombasa, Muhammad Abbas. All those big footballers came from Kilifi. Lucky Boys, there used to be a team called Lucky Boys, a big team that was one of the greatest teams in this country. But then, no one has ever considered to look at the North Coast as a home of talent and build a stadium. I ask you, during your tenure, look at it and see what you can do, and make sure that
Thank you,
the
Owen.
North Coast has a stadium.
You've made your point.
Thank
I see how many more hands. Cases, 1 question. We want to bring this to a close. Those who have just come in, I'm not giving you any time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Waziri. This is the sports person, and you're in the right ministry. Mr. Speaker, just a follow-up on a question by Parashina. I would wish Waziri to state the plans he has to ensure that the spread of sports academies across 290 constituencies are being planned to be executed, because recently we saw a few of them on notice, and we are yearning to know what are progressive plans. Lastly, the issue of athletes, and thank you for considering sports at Kipchoge Stadium. But you are aware, Waziri, that along Iten Road, along Moiben Road, our athletes are really suffering, finding places to train in terms of risk of accidents on the road. Are there deliberate plans to organize a road all the way to Iten, side of the road, so that we allow our athletes, especially the long-distance runners, to use those areas and save them against the risk of engaging or getting knocked by the motorist on the road, and you know all the Ulabalu. I thank you on the issue of gender-based violence. It's now a serious phenomenon within our community, being that athlete community. We need to do something deliberate.
Thank you.
Society.
That
Thank
has
you.
been asked. Minister, can you quickly answer all those?
Thank you very much, Speaker. First of all, let me say that Honorable Maungu.
Just hold on, Minister. Yes, Women Rep Nakuru. What is the issue? Just hold on, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, CS, for appearing before us, and congratulations on behalf of Nakuru County. My question to you, Bana CS, is about the Olenguruani Stadium. Olenguruani Stadium was started 10 years ago. It was constructed and nothing went on. So I want to just hear from you what kind of intervention will you give to Olenguruani Stadium? We are suffering, our youths are suffering because of this stadium that has installed from Kuresoi
Minister,
South. Thank you.
Can you proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start with Honorable Maungu. I will follow up the payment for the Luanda Villa team, who are the winners of the Super League, Division 1 League. I will follow up on the same to make sure that they are paid, and also a few other sportsmen and women whose money has not been disbursed. We'll make sure that that is done expeditiously. Honorable Mutuse, Nganga Training Center. Ngaga, okay. It is not in the immediate, the ones that have been advertised. But as we've discussed with you, we'll make it a great, should be prioritized in the next one to make sure that it is taken care of. Honorable CNN, Charles, how much is the cost of the new stadium? I think, Mr. Speaker, I don't have the figures here because we contracted the AFCON stadiums through defense. But maybe in the next supplementary, I should be able to supply the same, either here or through the committee, the relevant committee for that matter. I was trying to text a colleague on the other side, but because we are here, it's not been possible. We do not have directors for World Rally Championship. We just have a committee. So we have no directors who have not been paid. But if there is any complaint, it should be addressed specifically. The funny thing about this sector is that you have so many people carrying so many papers asking so many demanding certain payments of contracted works, where this one and that, I was a director, I was a committee member, and so forth. So we're trying to streamline to ensure that the record is kept well. And if you are not part of the record, you cannot be contracted as an afterthought after the fact. Honorable Pauline Samburu, I agree. I actually, when I sat in that office after 2 weeks, I realized that nobody talks about Lamu, nobody talks about Tana River, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Marsabit, Turkana. That all northern belt, including West Pokot, nobody mentions whether they need a stadium or they don't. I think there is a general mentality that stadiums are supposed to be in all the islands, the so-called white islands and so forth. That should not be the case. And I think Kilifi falls in that category of the marginalized areas. I promise, and I want to say this, I promise that progressively we will make sure that we do affirmative action. The same way I did with in the Ministry of Roads and Transport, I will be very deliberate also in the Ministry of Sports to make sure those areas are considered for for stadium development. We have Samburu then being part and parcel of that area affected, and Isiolo and so forth. Honorable Oyula, as that's about CDF. Unfortunately, Mheshimiwa, this falls back to yourself. It's upon this House to look at the CDF Act and ask yourselves why were you not able to finance sports, and yet sports is education. So it's sports, for as long as you're supporting education, you should be supporting sports because it is a part of the facilities of education. I don't know any other interpretation that would support. And let me use this opportunity to say, I support CDF. Even when I was in Senate, I still support CDF. I believe it is the best managed fund in the country in terms of development. So if we can allow CDF to also do sports facilities, it's extremely important. I think the interpretation that CDF is unconstitutional, from my position, is misguided. But it's up to the person who made it, and we are allowed to criticize decisions anyway. Now, on the question of Honorable Rueda, again, just like I promised Honorable Lenguris, I will do the same for your county. I will make sure that in the next batch of sports academies, we consider the marginalized areas, at least because that is affordable. We can start from there as we move towards 10,000, 15,000 sports facilities. Honorable Namwar, I am inspired by your suggestion that, because that is a question I was even asked during vetting, that what is the role of sports in promoting peace? I think we should transition what we started together as well-wishers and a CSR to the people of North Rift. We can transition that to think through it as government, how we can structure it to remain consistent with dealing with the menace of banditry and other peace-related issues in Kerio Valley, and then becomes owned by the counties and the leadership from that region. I also need to say that when we were playing that tournament in Turkana, I was very surprised that we were playing at almost 40 degrees at midday, and you're playing on sand. I think, your county and others deserve to be treated differently and as really marginalized areas. Honorable Parashina, I received your letter on the request of, I don't know, maybe he has left, on the request of the sports academies, and I think we will try our best to respond to the issues you've raised in Kajiado. And maybe now that you are not here, we can start with Ngong. Oh, yeah, it's here, okay. I received your letter. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we will put it into consideration. When it comes to Honorable Mukunji, yes, I am informed that before the Embu Stadium was constructed, Jukiri was supposed to be the first one. And so we'll see in the queue how else we can come back then to Embu, at least having considered a few of other your colleagues here who are in serious problems. At least you have one stadium. Because of the Madaraka Day, it moved to Embu itself, and Jukiri was supposed to be the priority initially in that place. You have asked the question of the office furniture. I almost did like Balotelli once said that, why always me? The furniture issue is not, the cabinet secretary does not furnish offices, and neither does the cabinet secretary procure furniture for furnishing offices. The truth of the matter is that the furniture that is established there is part of furnishing Talanta offices. We have not occupied Talanta fully yet. In fact, the PS office is still squatting somewhere. They are completing. And also the PS youth has not moved to Talanta because, for people who know, it's a new building. So it's being redone, and then after it is done, it will all be furnished. So luckily, in the process, my predecessor was there, and when I came in, the furniture was moved to other offices, other furniture was brought there. So I did not move with the furniture from transport. It is the work of the ministry to furnish the entire building. And that will go on until all the staff we need to occupy the headquarters is done. And why I said, why always me, is that people are saying the furniture is very beautiful. Yet it's a furniture that is in all other ministry offices, as you may have gone to other offices across the country. But I'm used to that now. Honorable Ngogoyo, very true. I had a meeting recently with Mary Mora after she came from the Diamond League. She's also trained there. She came with the athlete Cheriot. And we had a long discussion about what we should do with Ngong. I agree with you that we should prioritize Ngong. Other than Iten, Ngong is the other place that has very many high-altitude training athletes. And we are going to do something to make sure that that is sorted. Both the stadium there for track events, but also the routes that are going to be used to run along the hills. We also need to know and hope the county government, when they are giving out permits for people to construct, we need to take care of routes that can be used for training. And we need to preserve Ngong as a very valuable, a jewel for our athletes when they're training. And I think we really need and deserve to do so. Honorable Bayer, as you said, is true. There's a plan to do something in Shanzu to start with, which is still in Mombasa. And I believe that we should also move to Kilifi County to make sure that you have a proper facility. But what we want to do in Shanzu is of international standard, the equivalent of Nyayo, or somewhere between Nyayo and Kasarani, or between Nyayo and Talanta, something, because the low altitude competitions take place in places like the coast region. We want one stadium to be done there of a magnitude that can help us in hosting competitions, because you can't host it in high altitude areas, a very high altitude area. Honorable Ruto, I agree that we need to safeguard the roads roadsides for running by our athletes. When I was in the Ministry of Roads, we had worked together with if you go to Ite now, our plan was to make sure that we safeguard running tracks with Maram. You don't need to put the tarmac in the side roads for running. And I think that should go on. I believe that my colleagues in the roads and transport sector will continue the good work, the plans that we had to make sure that this is achieved, not just in Elgeyo Marakwet alone, in all the training areas across the country, especially where people are running. And this will help. But also, preservation of forests and running areas around the forest will also be useful for athletes because they are off the road. And we can avoid accidents that happen to people like Geoffrey Kamwaror. And we were unable to have him for international competitions. Lastly is Honorable Liza has asked about Olenguruwani Stadium. That stadium is a county facility. And we believe that if you can work together with the county government of Nakuru, you should be able to deliver a good facility for Olenguruwani. But also, as we work towards delivery of the sports academy for Kuresoi North, yeah? Is that north or south? South, that's south. As we work towards eventually doing the academy for Kuresoi South, that may be an area to be considered for construction, depending. We have also some other projects. We are working with development partners, and we will see whether we can identify that one area, because we know that is the home of Faith, Kiviego, and many other athletes. And that's the neighborhood also of Beatrice, Chebet. So we know that that area produces also some of the top athletes in the country. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks.
Minister, there is a member who has been here since we started, Ferdinand Wanyonyi, and he's been raising his hand, and we passed him many times.
Yeah,
let him be the very last. Bashir, you just came in a few minutes ago.
Now let me talk first. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Ask your question.
First of all, I want to thank you for this very good report on the preparation for 2027 CAF preparation. Now, you've not mentioned Trans Nzoia in the Kitale Stadium, which is actually under construction. And I was just wondering, CS, with a lot of talent in Trans Nzoia, why this has not been done? You've not done anything on it. And I was requesting if you could have even the CSR contractor in Eldoret to do the CSR and complete this particular stadium, because Trans Nzoia has a lot of talent. You not mentioned that, and I was just wondering whether I should remind you on the same, because that's part of the North Rift, and I want you to do something about it. Lastly and not least, I just want to make a statement. CS, we are going to have people coming from all over the country, all over the world. And Kenya, you know, there's a lot of this thuggery of the youths. Please make sure that you stress on the security of the people who come so that you don't get embarrassed. At the same time, the accommodation for the visitors, again, you have not mentioned. I want you to mention that as well, because it's very important. We want to give a very good image of our country. And so this preparation should have been mentioned here so I can be able to see who they can interject. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, that's the very last.
Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
Bashir, sorry, Minister. Bashir,
Yes.
when the Speaker says is the last one, respect it.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. You know, in other places it's mentioned that it's ongoing, it's stalled, but in Northeastern, Wajir, Mandera, Garissa.
He has covered the whole area and said you are marginalized. He's going to give you affirmative action.
But Mr. Speaker, I want him to come out very, very clear to say that something will be done in Wajir, in Mandera, and Garissa, without saying that something like marginalized. So, Mr. Honorable CS, what plans do you have for Wajir, Mandera, and Garissa, and the other northern Kenya counties, specifically those that don't have stadiums? Please give timelines so that we know that you will be able to start at what date and something like that. Give us timelines of starting
stadiums in those regions. Thank you.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on Honorable Wanyonyi's question, the Kitale Stadium is a county facility, so and it is being done by the county. Until such time that we can have a partnership, if need be, in future, we will see what to do. But at the moment, it's being done and managed by the county government of Trans Nzoia. Number two is that we have the issue of, you are very right, preparation for AFCON is not just infrastructure. Today I just came with infrastructure, but I shall be chairing an intergovernmental meeting for cabinet secretaries to discuss now to prepare for the overall preparation, which is infrastructure, airports, the roads, the security, what kind of security is going to be done, housing, you know. But also this is an opportunity for people to invest in AFCON. You know, look for and tap into the opportunities that exist for you to invest, whether in hotels, in the vicinity of the important stadia, whether you are going to provide transport facilities, and so forth, Mr. Speaker. So I agree with the Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi that I should come back perhaps again next year, sometime next year, to now talk about government preparedness comprehensively for the tournament beyond the sports facility, Mr. Speaker, including now how we're preparing the Harambee Stars and so forth. On the question of Honorable Bashir, I don't need to repeat myself, Mr. Speaker. The reality is that there was no plan at the moment. And the truth is that we need to have a plan to build, at least in that region, at least one 10,000-seater, an international kind of a stadium in that region. The only thing that exists at the moment in the plan is the advertised Tarbach Academy, which is part of the 30 academies that had already been advertised. But a proper stadium, as I have said, and I reiterate, that region requires affirmative action from the national government. I thank you.
Minister, we have come to the end of our interaction. Well done. If there are any outstanding issues, you can be invited to the committees anytime, but please try and manage our football. Number two, in other jurisdictions, these foreigners who come for high altitude training must be and are treated as high-end tourists and pay sufficient premium to boost our economy. I don't know what plans you have for those high-altitude training. You remember the Radcliffes and all those fellows who train in your county, renting little huts and not contributing to this economy, and then going to be world beaters because they have enjoyed our serene facilities. What are you planning for this? Because in other jurisdictions, you'll find this kind of training is actually a major contributor to the GDP of the country.
Mr. Speaker, I truly recognize your passion for football and organization of our football. And I, from vetting to today to when I meet you privately, you have always insisted that...
Even when we watch Arsenal together.
Yeah, even
always...
when we watch Arsenal suffer together, Mr. Speaker. I believe that, Mr. Speaker, we need to sort that area. And so thank you for the support you are giving me and the support being given by the members of parliament. We will do, it's not an easy area because it has been a problem for a long time, but we are doing everything possible, using the coming elections to make sure that we open up the space and ensure that democracy prevails and we get the best people to come and manage our football. On the question of the athletes, we allow us to think about it further because, Mr. Speaker, we are easily going to be asked, why are you charging higher for that person coming to train to run and not the one who has come to film at the national park or so forth. So let me say this, that in our policy consideration, we will have an holistic approach to the same. The thing is that maybe then another issue is that when we build these facilities like Kamaranj Stadium or Kipchoge or Kapsabet Stadium, maybe they will access those training facilities at a higher fee than the locals themselves, so that then it is the training environment and facilities that can help us get these resources. Otherwise, I truly agree with you that these people make a lot of money by training here, and they live very little because they live in small cubicles in the training facility, and then they very little for them to live here as an investment. But also, there has been a failure in the past in terms of investors. Very few investors have identified and invested in the facility. For example, this Ngong that we've discussed, Honorable Ngongoyo, if someone had a proper stadium there for training and then put an hotel there, they would get a lot of money. And that's where we want to tell private sector, you have an opportunity to make money in sports, and sports can really become an area that can enrich the Republic. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to be here. Excited to be enjoying this discussion with honorable members. Excited to be serving in this ministry. It's been very exciting for the last 1 month, and I look forward to even further interactions. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. You are released to go back to your ministry with your team. Next order.
Order number 11, motion, ratification of the protocol to the
That is the Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports, Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, leaving the chambers this evening. He is the Cabinet Secretary who was responding to various questions that had been forwarded to him by various members of the National Assembly, and he has just concluded responding to those concerns as forwarded to his ministry. But right about now, we would like to introduce a clip. This is with regards to the activities of the members of the National Assembly. This is members of the National Assembly that is yesterday on Tuesday discussed at length the implications